It's been an eventful last 5 or so days for the club. I wonder if you could just, Kurt, maybe to start out with, tell us how the Chicho deal came about with San Jose.
Yeah, it's been 5 days. I wish it was only 5 days. It's been an eventful, since the season ended. Yeah, I mean, look, the Chicho situation came about. It probably wasn't as sudden for me as it was for all of you. Obviously, everyone saw how last season went, and the second half obviously wasn't quite the same as the first. And we had a lot of conversations internally, obviously amongst the staff and with Chicho, and he came to us at a point in the off season and asked us to help find a solution that would benefit him and his family and look for a fresh start. And look, we thought we found a solution that was really the best case scenario for everybody.
And then Pablo, for your side of that same kind of situation, losing a guy that scores 17 goals, has 12 assists, how does that impact the team? How do you look to maybe make up for that production this season?
Yeah, so I think every year, even if you have the same players back, things change quite a bit, and I think the way that we're looking at it is Chicho did a really good job of finding gaps to score goals, and he's just a killer with his instincts, and but at times operated outside the game model. The way I'm looking at this, if we have somebody that is dictating the defensive line and really playing on that highest line at all times, it'll open up a lot more space for guys like Diego to be more productive from a goal scoring perspective. And I'll also add, in the first few days of training this preseason, Dom's been able to be more effective in the attack because he's got a point of reference that's always in the box. And so again, I think it's always like you see the players that you have, the relationships they build in preseason, and I think as we go along, we'll get a clearer picture. But I feel really good about the guys that we have, and being a club that develops young players, and I think there's some good ones in camp, and I think we might all be surprised at what these guys are capable of.
That was a nice segue there for the next question about guys that have come into the team over the last week or so. Kurt, could you maybe run through, I think it's been about 4 or 5 guys that have been announced over the last week or so, and then Pablo, I know it's only been a short time, but what you've seen from them on the pitch.
Gotta think about what you guys know and what you guys don't. Yeah, Kobe Henry came in, right? Young player, actually was part of the Miami Academy when I was there, when we first started that there in Florida, and knew him then before Orange County, and did well in, had a good spell in USL, and went to France, and it's not working out maybe how he wanted there, and he's a guy that we think we can, again, like Pablo said, develop and turn into a pretty good player. Man, you might have to give me names. Who else did we announce to trade? Tyler?
Mason just came in today.
Yeah, so, okay. Who else? Goals to we sign?
That we've announced?
Yeah, that we've announced. I can't break news.
No, you're good.
Sam, I mean, Sam was a guy we brought in, obviously, in the Julio trade, and we thought he's a reliable MLS guy that can give us real good depth in 2 spots and compete and push our starters, and both left back and left center back.
And then I guess there were the guys like from December to the draft and through the re-entry. I think there were a few guys that you guys.
Yeah, Forster's a young striker that I think has a lot of potential. I think he started pretty rightly in preseason. We'll see how things go with him. We're not in a rush to see what he becomes, but he's another youngish player that we're trying to develop and bring along. Mason's a guy, and I guess maybe I don't know if I'm breaking a little news here, but obviously you guys all probably have read that Gav's kind of on the way out, and it's a good thing for Gav. Obviously, we need to adapt and adjust. So bringing Mason in to be a backup that's got some MLS games under his belt, so we can rely upon him as well. And we've got a couple young guys behind him now as well in college.
And then Pablo, so I guess them 3 guys there: Kobe, Sam, and Forster.
Yeah, all 3 of them have been impressive in the first 3 days. But I think it's really interesting because when guys come into a new environment, you're always, I'm always asking them how they feel about it, and they've all been there early, ready to go, and they love the facilities, they love the club, they love the mentality of the teammates that are there, and it's almost like they've just integrated seamlessly. They've all performed really, really well, those three in particular, and so again, that's what's exciting about preseason, you know, and seeing these new guys come in and, you know, adapt to the group, and the guys that have been here really taking them in, and it just feels like a really tight group after 3 days. But like Kurt said, it's a marathon, not a sprint, and you know, as the season goes on, we'll see how they adapt, but they've been really good.
Awesome, thanks.
This is probably mostly for Kurt, but I'm sure Pablo has maybe some thoughts on it, so I'll let him kind of piggyback afterwards if you want, Coach. But how, kind of in that vein, how deep into preseason do you kind of see you guys still kind of tinkering and adding and bringing in new guys and that sort of thing before, like, does there ever come a point where you go, okay, this group needs to just kind of come together and work together, sort of what they have, I guess?
I mean, they're doing that every day, and Paulo can speak to that more. But obviously, the group that's here, they're gelling, they're working together, they're on the same page, they're collaborating like that. That's happening every day. Honestly, you know, we feel really good about the roster and in a lot of spots, right? You know, we feel not only good about our starting options, but our depth and our competition in those roles. So I think we'll just keep our eyes open, and when we can add a piece that makes a difference in the group, then we'll do that.
Sure. Anything that goes or?
No, I agree with that. I think it's where we're at the moment. It's really interesting to see how these players, because the way I think about teams is if there's a void, it's going to be filled, and who fills it with what kind of qualities that we're looking for. And if they're not given those opportunities, we never know what the players that we currently have are capable of. And so I think we're, as a coaching staff, always assessing after every training session, reviewing the video, and just commenting, and we have notes that we have on every single player, and seeing how they progress. So as we'll have more information as we go on, but it's been real bright the first 3 days.
You did kind of touch on this, but maybe just sort of to follow up or go a little deeper, however you wish. Replacing a guy like Chicho, just in terms of production, the double-digit goal scorers, they don't come around every day in MLS. Do you feel like you have somebody on this roster that can really step into that role pretty quickly, or is that sort of part of the search as well with Kurt and his group?
Yeah, I think again, like I said earlier, just about teams and how you get your goals. You know, when Andres was here, he was huge in the production aspect of our goal scoring. Without Andres, now Luna picks it up quite a bit. You know, Dom contributed, Ojeda contributed. So it's just interesting how things morph. There's never, but like Chicho's a special player, right? And he makes goals that he outproduces his XG quite a bit in a lot of the goals that he scores, right? And that's what his specialty. And so the way I'm looking at this with the group that we currently have is like, how do we get Diego more productive, Diego more productive, Dom more productive? And the best way to kind of explain that is by having a striker that's occupying the center backs, playing the highest line, and there's never a ball that goes across behind the defense. That's never, you know, because again, last year, because we had so much flexibility with Chicho to allow him to do his things, there was oftentimes we didn't have guys crash in the box because he was waiting at the top of the box to do his thing. And so, but what I've seen from Diogo and Dom in particular this year, along with Forster, has been guys that have been playing to the game model, knowing where the next guy's going to be, delivering balls and finishing them. So you know, it's going to be different, but we're going to rely on the committee versus one particular player to be the guy that carries the team in that department.
Last thing for me, but since you mentioned Diego, I'll kind of bring him back around. Diego, and obviously he's back in with the national team camp with January camp, so that qualifier and everything. But do you see, have you been able to kind of see a little bit of, we talked coming out of the season about sort of the next steps in his progression. Have you been able to see him kind of like starting to take on maybe some of those next steps that we talked about back then as he, you know, gets more experience internationally in camp and now obviously in a pretty big role with the club?
Yeah, you know, I think Diego, the reason why Diego's been able to, at a young age, deliver the way he has has been because he's been able to lead himself. And it's very difficult for young players to understand that whilst we create the environment and we have great coaches, the onus is on the individual to take the extra steps every day. And Diego's one guy that he's dialed in every video session. He stays after and does his work after the session. And so from a leadership standpoint, I think that's the next bit. And I think having gone to the January camp last year was kind of like he was a bit shocked. I think this year is almost like I'm deserving of it, winning the MLS, Young Player of the Year. And so my expectation is that he brings that leadership from the last couple of years, but also the second national camp, and becomes a leader in his own right. And we need to procure that. We need to bring that, because he's a fantastic leader of himself. And now it's how does he bring other players to the same type of level where he's bright in video, stays after, disciplined in his work, and I think he has it in him to do that this year.
So, Kurt, from what you're saying, I'm taking it that we shouldn't expect a big splashy signing to replace Chicho, as it more build from within and see what happens?
You can expect whatever you want. Big, small, it's up to you guys. I think what you can expect from us is a signing that helps the team be successful, honestly. Like Pablo's talking about the characteristics that we want out of striker, whether that striker costs $100,000 or $10 million, it is not the important part. The important part is, does he do the things we want? Can he get on the chances? Pablo talked about game model. That's how we get the players in the positions to create the chances that we want to create, right? And then we need to put someone in the right spot to finish those chances. So again, what that player costs is not my focus so much, but we're looking for the right set of qualities. So I can't sit here and tell you, is it a big signing? Is it a small signing? Some people think some signings are bigger than other people think. So we'll have to see when we get there. But we're looking for the right fit is always the most important thing.
With Pablo Luis coming back, and you were really happy with the defensive partnership you had in those two positions. How does that look?
Yeah, great question. I think the one thing the expectations, I think everyone is really excited to have Pablo back. Now he's been out for about a year and a half with injury, and so I even talked to him today after training. He pulled himself out because he was getting a little bit of swelling in his knee. We're training on the turf, and so this is we've got to bring Pablo along in a way that is conducive for his physical well-being, given that he's been away for so long, and then also the mental. Like I don't need to put these huge expectations on him to pick up where he left off in 2023, because it's unrealistic. And so we've sat together with the medical staff to make sure that we're doing everything that we can control to make the runway a lot longer than we typically want for preseason, but to do so in a way that we can get Pablo back and feeling good. And because again, when you have knee injuries, and DJ, you probably has these playing basketball, is like you there's a lot of fear. It almost becomes more psychological than the actual physical. But within that, Pablo is a guy that plays the pivot position a little different. So we're working on two different setups in the attack. One of them is almost catered to Pablo's ability to drop into the back line and quarterback from a deeper position. And then the flip side of that is, as we get higher up the field, his ability to find the final pass and also score goals is a unique little twist to the other pivots that we have in the middle of the field. So he's going to be an important player for us. But again, I just caution that we're taking this slow and to do the best for Pablo to come back and feel really good physically and mentally, so that he can contribute in the way we think he can.
How does Diogo Gonzalez look, given the fact that now he's getting a chance to acclimate a little bit, as opposed to getting thrown in the middle of the season?
Yeah, I think it's this league is so tough when you get players in the summer window. There's very little time, and the pressure is the highest it's going to be, and every game is worth double the points. I think he was disappointed with himself, and I constantly explained to him that this is not easy for anyone, and there's been some some of the biggest players in the world have come to this league and struggled in their first month or 2 or 3. He's looked very bright in preseason. I think the aura to him is different as well. It's a clean slate, and he's been doing really well these last 3 days. So I anticipate a huge shift in the way he acclimates to the league and his teammates. He understands the way we want to play, and he's a player that can score goals for us and help us create. He's a special player, and we gotta put him in positions to be successful.
How much are you sticking with the game model you used last year, defending in a 4-4-2, pushing the left back forward, and how much are you changing things because you've lost a lot of attacking players?
Yeah, so good question. For the most part, like I said, from an attacking perspective and defending perspective, we're going to have another variable that we're going to start working on second week in preseason. Utilize that in some preseason games, because again, I think there's times last year where teams started to really hone in on what we were doing, and it made it really difficult for us. And so, having learned that, experienced that, it's really important that we have an alternative formation, both offensively and defensively, to be able to deal with teams, and also in our preparation. If teams don't know which way you're going, it's very difficult to prepare. And so I think it'll be a good wrinkle that will benefit some players with a secondary formation, for sure. And like I said, like a guy like Pablo is one of the names that stick out. But it gives us flexibility, variability in the way we prepare, but more importantly, how we attack the game at the weekend.
I hate to use the word expectations again, I went over so poorly the first time. But what should fans' expectations be for the Champions Cup? There have been runs here in the past, it's really excited the fan base, the team hasn't been in a while, but you've got all these changes up top, and Diego Luna and Emeka Anelli are with the national team in the January camp, so it seems like it's a compressed camp and you don't have everybody, so what should the expectations be for a high-level competition like this right out of the gate?
Yeah, I'll let you guys decide with those. I'll just tell you from my perspective what my expectations are. Is anytime we're in a tournament, we want to put our best foot forward. We want to win every single game, which then means winning the cup, right? But again, for me, it's about process. It's about, we're going to put our best group out for the first game, and then we'll deal with the next game accordingly. So again, all our energies is really focusing in on that game in San Jose, Costa Rica, and again, I think once you get the wheels turning a little bit, there's momentum, there's belief, and not only is it easy to start your first game out of the country, but I think it's one that will really prepare us for a long and at times rigorous season.
Continuing with the focus on the front there, what are your concerns? 42 of the 65 goals you scored aren't in camp now, they're gone. Is there any concerns about where the goals are going to come from?
Not for me. Yeah, I mean, my greatest strength is that I believe we're great, regardless of who's on the field. That's my greatest strength. It may also be my greatest weakness, right? And but I coach to that. So in this situation, it's how do we get more from the guys that we have, right? Because again, when you have a player like Chicho, he takes up a lot of the space, both emotionally and physically. Like, he's moving to areas, and now it provides room for these other guys that may have not had as much production because maybe they didn't need to. It wasn't that they didn't want to, that they didn't need to, because we had a figure up front. So now it's gonna, like I said, I believe that collectively, if everyone plays to the game model, again, we created a ton of chances last year, right? And so the way I'm looking at it is, if we create the same amount of chances we did last year, we're going to score some goals. And who does it? It doesn't really matter to me. It doesn't. And then the other part of that is you got to defend as well, right? And so a lot of our success last year came from the way we defended higher up the field, led to a lot of good transition moments to score goals. And we're going to have a striker up there. It's not like we're not going to have a striker up there, right? So we're going to win balls. We're going to play balls forward. We're going to have 4v3s, and we're going to have to finish those chances.
What about the defensive side? Seems like we struggled,
RSL struggled in the second half of the season with defense a little bit. They kind of turned it around when you got into the playoffs. But what are your thoughts on goalkeeper? Is Zach McMath your starter? What positions are open on that back line?
Again, I think this is why preseason's great, is because we mix teams, we play 11v11s, we get a good idea as to how the partnerships on the back line, you know. But I think every position at the preseason, obviously you pencil things in as to how you project it would go. But we as coaches are every day making notes and saying, like, you know, we've got a really busy schedule on the front end, so everyone's going to get a run, right? So the positive is that you're going to be able to see performances under a lot of pressure, and then from there you decide, because again, every year there's guys that are going to step up, and there's guys maybe that are the same as they were last year, and then you have to make decisions accordingly. But we're always trying to become a better team than we were last year on both sides of the ball.
What would you say, I mean, this is for Kurt, is there a change in philosophy? What would you say to fans who may have the, assume or may have the opinion that with RSL spending $6 million on Chicho and then seemingly, from what we understand, you know, selling him for less than they brought him in for. Matt Crooks came in last year, seemed to have a positive impact, and he's not going to be there, another big signing. What would you say to fans if they're assuming the RSL has a change in philosophy and they're leaning towards more younger players to sell on, and maybe not focusing on bringing in a star player, as mentioned, for a player like Chicho or Matt? Is that a change in philosophy?
No. I mean, you said it at the end, like, so developing players, you know, winning through development is our philosophy. That's a phrase that we say to each other every day and every week, and remind each other that's what we're doing. And, you know, the first word in that sentence is winning, right? And so we want to win. Whether we win with 30-year-olds or 20-year-olds is not important to us, and it shouldn't be important to anybody else. We want to get the right talent in the team that can do what we want them to do, that can play in the game model and produce when we ask them to. You know, last year we're going into the season last year relying on two pretty young, relatively untested kids to carry the load for us, in Luna and Gomez. And now it's, you know, Diego has really, you know, stepped up in 2024, and we're looking for him to do it again in 25. You know, Andres Gomez, again, going into 24, I think some people thought he sucked. You know, some fans maybe weren't big fans of his, and I thought he took a big step up and showed what he could do. And so I think we're doing the same thing again, right? Dominic Marchuk, who we invested money in, is come in, and he's entering his first preseason. He's going to take a step up. You know, Diogo is a guy that, you know, cost us whatever it was, $3 million, and he's going to take a step up with his first preseason. You know, Luna, another step up, right? So I think we're always going to develop young guys, you know, whether we're signing young foreigners or bringing guys through the academy. That's always going to be part of what we do. And it doesn't mean that there's a lack of emphasis on any other part of what I said. You know, winning together through development means we're winning, and we're collaborating, and we're developing young players and people, and I think that's what we're, if any question about how we're doing it, what our philosophy is, I think if you just refer to that, I think that'll be safe. We know in order to develop young players, you know, you've got to have a few older guys. You mentioned Crooks and Chicho, but now we've got Diogo. You know, Brian Ojeda is someone who's getting older. Justin Glad is an older guy now. You know, we're going to have some experience in goal as well, right? So we have those older tentpoles of experience around the younger players that have talent and potential and can continue to grow.
Hey, good afternoon. My name is Nelson from RSL Spanish Radio. Probably not a question. I just wanted to say congrats for the new season. And as everybody, I'm so excited to see you guys in the mix. And I'm so confident in both of you, especially with you, Pablo. I know that you will be doing such a great job as always. So I wish you the best as always.
Thank you.
Anything else, guys? Anybody on Zoom, please raise your hand.
Oh, hi. Yeah, hi. I don't know if you guys can hear me. My name is Andrew Porter. I did have a question. This one's for Kurt. I was wondering, how is the new cash trade market change your strategy of how you guys are going to operate this transfer window?
I wouldn't say it changes the strategy in the immediate term in any specific way, but obviously if you look at what it can do in MLS and, you know, the Chicho transaction in particular, when we brought him in, I think this market or this ability to trade players for real cash instead of just allocation money kind of simplifies those types of situations. If there's a team that has a player that they're willing to move and, you know, there's now an ability to buy that player with cash instead of the GAM, which obviously is a finite supply, and so, you know, that's why the GAM trade record is right around like 2 million plus some other stuff, is because any more than that, and nobody can really afford to give up more than that at any point in time, because it also is money that you use to extend your roster. So if you give up more than 2 million across a 2-year period, it kind of cripples you, you know, so there's always going to be a ceiling on that. So this allows there to be a cap on that, and then, you know, not in the immediate term again, but in the future, it's a place where it just expands the market for us. If we're selling a young player that we've developed, if that's something that we want to do, now we can actually achieve our financial goals within MLS as well as outside of MLS. So it actually opens up a few different avenues in that way. As far as talent acquisition, again, it would, if we find the right guy here and, you know, we don't have the GAM for it, you know, turns out right now we do, but if we didn't have the GAM for a trade like that, you know, cash would be an option. It would simplify things.
Cool. Another question for Kurt. Have you seen any players with the Monarchs of the Academy that have developed to a point where you think they might be able to start taking up some significant minutes with the first team?
Significant minutes is a question mark, but I think there's a few guys that have come along really well and are knocking on the door. You know, I don't know if I want to go into too many specific names, but so a guy like Griff Dillon, who was in preseason with us last year, had a pretty good Monarch season, and, you know, he's someone that, you know, is kind of on the fringe and he's in and out of the first group, and I think he's a guy that's come along reasonably well. You know, Matthew Bell had a good season with Monarchs last year. He's got a little injury right now, so we'll see what he has this preseason. And we brought in a few other guys, and obviously the draft picks we picked up this year, we expect big things from. And then we've got, you know, Aiden Hezerkani and Owen Anderson and some of these other younger guys that are more recent signings. They don't have as many Monarchs games under their belts, but they're starting to show their qualities in training sessions, both with Monarchs and with the first team, and coming along. But I would say we're still, you know, there's not a huge crop coming through right now, but I think we're seeing more and more signs that it's coming.
Sweet, thank you. And then one more question for Pablo. Have you spoken to Pochettino about Diego or Emeka's skill set, or, you know, maybe preferred positions, either before the call up or after the call up?
No, I haven't spoken to Mauricio. Again, the feedback I'm getting, and it's from people within the camp, is that they're you know, I think Luna had a little bit of an injury, but Emeka's doing extremely well. So yeah, it's you know, the way that relationship usually works is that, you know, if the U.S. coach wants to talk to a coach, he usually reaches out. It'd be kind of weird if I started calling him and saying like, oh yeah, this guy's really good in this position. It'd be a bit strange, but I think they're, again, and whether or not, or not even dependent on how much they play, but I think being in an environment, I had the opportunity to go spend, I don't know, a week with Pochettino years ago, and I know that the same things I ask of our group here, you know, he does it with all his teams, and then when you're representing your country, it's double the intensity. So I think it's going to be a great experience for both these guys, regardless of where they play. And again, I think he's a coach that understands the way he wants to play, and he sees the attributes in those players and decides which position is going to be best for him. So I'm just excited to see these guys compete for the U.S. team and do really well, so that they can come back to our group and just inject our group with a ton of confidence.
Sweet, thank you.
Any last questions? Morgan?
No, it's all covered. I'm good.
DJ, Kevin, Caleb, Sean, you guys good?